All right, we are back with episode 2 of the Wisconsin United Football Club podcast. I'm your host, Monte Reyment, and my co-host here, Eric Gebhard. And we have a very special guest on this episode, Melissa Pearson. So, Melissa, welcome to the episode.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your role, how you fit in, and then I always like to get an idea of just, your background in sports. Sounds like you're a big sports fan. And Eric also said you're really smart, and that's why you're here. Go.
Well, thank you, Eric. And so probably the most relevant role for Wisconsin United is I'm Director of Operations at East Central Soccer District. So that is the district that serves WISA clubs in Northeast Wisconsin. We sort of provide that continuity and structure of scheduling games, training. We collaborate to train referees, educate coaches, et cetera. So I play that role, but then I also work for the Soccer Parenting Association, which is a national organization that collaborates with clubs and districts on parent education.
I can't wait to hear that one. And that was a big thing when, in the last episode, I talked about my background as a college recruiting specialist, and I did that for 10 years and, educated 10,000 families on recruiting. And parental education was almost as equally as important as it was for the kids, because the kids want to play. It's the parents that we have to control the pedestal. And that was always a big thing. So I'm excited to dive into that because I'm sure I have a lot of stories I can share about that part of it. So tell us about your background.
So grew up multi-sport athlete, kind of grew up in a sports family, always playing sports. So, but predominantly soccer and basketball, and eventually track was a thing I did too. But our entire family just kind of ran off of athletics and played a fair amount of club basketball. And then when it came time for college, I was fortunate enough to have opportunities in both soccer and basketball and had a ton of love for soccer and ultimately chose to play soccer in college at Marian University, not the Wisconsin one, because I went in Indianapolis. Yep. I drew up the real Marian University.
Yeah. I have a friend who coaches football there. He's the head football coach.
Okay. So played there, got a degree in chemistry and started working as a scientist and eventually moved up here to Wisconsin for work and kind of got back into soccer when my kids got into it.
For sure. That must have been a little nostalgic getting, you grew up. Did you live vicariously through them or were you past that now?
No, my husband and I talk about this a fair amount because he also is an athlete and a coach. He's a wrestling coach at Kakana. So our entire house now revolves around sports again. It was very intentional that we chose to choose not to live vicariously. It's fun to watch them play these sports and watch them be involved in the things that we love, but we also want them to have their own identity.
For sure.
So for me, so much of my identity was formed on the sports field, and I want them to have that too in a way that's authentic for them.
Yeah. And I think that's important. That's the recruiting thing I always went through was, it's so important for their kid to be D1 when they're really truly not a D1 athlete kind of thing. And, mom or dad might have been a D1 athlete, and so that they think their seed is, worthy of going D1 too. And it's like, hey, so sorry.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Somewhere down the line, great grandpa was 5'2". It's not happening.
Yeah. So I asked you here as the operations manager of East Central, but also as an advocate of Soccer Parenting Network. How long have you been serving as the operations manager for East Central?
Oh, it's relatively new. It's just starting into my second season. So I started as Sue Ann Evers retired. She was in the role for a long time. Kind of heard through the grapevine that they were looking for somebody when she was retiring and kind of put my hat in the ring. And so it's been under a year. So this spring will be my second sort of sports season with them.
Yeah, I've seen really a dramatic improvement in strategically trying to align the local clubs and basically she serves over these meetings where the room's filled with competitive clubs in the area and she has to walk that tightrope between people and mediate and try to bring together and strategically align for hopefully everybody's moving in the same direction for the good of the game.
I would think on that, and again, I'm coming from the outside, right? I'm familiar with all the sports, but just looking at the amount of planning that has to go in when you're talking about 3,500 kids in a program, that's an undertaking. How do you even start?
Yeah, I'm a systems person at core, so I look at that as the task. It's my responsibility to make that simple. And so Playmetrics, I think, actually does a fantastic job of making some of it simple, but then I'm also kind of an AI nerd. So
nice.
I changed a lot this year where AI accelerated some things. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is free up the task side of that work so that we can work on what Eric talked about with the strategy. To keep a healthy soccer district, if all we're doing is scheduling and operationalizing, we're putting our kind of cognitive energy in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
What we need to be working on is creating that system and that ecosystem that serves the kids. And
yeah, for sure.
so,
well, I think that's important. I look at that too in my role as a real estate broker of, systematizing things so that you can get what really matters, and that's building relationships throughout. And that's what you guys, I think, specialize in, and what's different about your program from a lot of them that I've worked with in my recruiting area is they have a lot more engagement from the leadership. They feel like they're part of something, and there's less confusion. And so when that happens, kids play better, parents probably behave better. So I think a lot of that is tied to just being out there. If you can be the face and you can be face to face with somebody, you're going to have a better experience.
So you have a unique role on a national level with soccer parenting and Sky and her work, and you guys just published your national report. Do you want to tell us more about that? And how do we, keep everybody aligned, keep them, understanding that they're not playing in the World Cup final, and keep from burning out our referees and coaches and young players? What is the kind of the blueprint of your work with them, and how can we make a better environment for these kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my work with them, my title is chief of staff, but it is a little bit of a misnomer. I kind of work in the background on the research side and helping to understand what trends are happening, what are we hearing from parents, and then how do we respond to that? We actually believe parents aren't a problem. It's when you can build collaboration and community and bring parents into solutionizing how the sidelines are, then you have a healthier ecosystem. So one of our big products is the Sideline Project. It's a course that's meant to drive reflection among parents and help them understand, are they showing up as a supportive parent or a distracting parent? And most parents don't identify as distracting going into it. And the reality is a lot of them really are. They think the cheering is supportive, and it's like, actually, no, that's kind of distracting. So it creates that cognitive awareness of that behavior. But then we also do research with parents and clubs and try to understand what's going on. One of the things we're seeing is actually going back to that reflection. That's our problem right now. For the last 3 or 4 years, parents have said that other sideline is an issue, but I'm fine. Or that other coach is a problem, but I'm fine. And the gap in the data is, it's a meaningful gap. And the reality is that take a moment and reflect, maybe you are creating part of that challenge, and let's be part of the solution and get clear on how we're showing up on the sideline as parents. So that's a big thing for us to take on this year.
Yeah. As an uncle, with, 6 nieces and nephews, and they're into sports now too. And, none of them are soccer athletes, but there's a swimmer, there's baseball, there's wrestling, there's all those things. And wrestling's crazy. Wrestling parents are wild. So that's a different culture. No offense to any wrestling parents out there, but y'all got to slow your roll in some cases.
It's hard to watch your kid get headlocked.
Yeah. I guess my point is this is, again, it goes back to what we were just talking about, is that vicariously living through and teaching them that it's okay to lose. You can learn from a loss, and again, yeah, you want to be the best. Everybody wants to be the best, but how do you handle that in grace? Because in life, later on down the road, when you're 25 years old and you don't get that job, and you go start blaming everybody else because you didn't get that job, or you got fired because you didn't get, you weren't doing your job, and you never are able to look inward and understand how to take an L and get just hey, go get some feedback, go learn how to improve, go learn how to be better. If you're teaching your kids those wrong behaviors early on, that stays with you throughout life.
Yeah, that's sort of that perspective, that broader perspective we hope our kids are learning on the field, right? That ability to regulate their nervous system, to know they have the grit to bounce back from a loss. I think that's what every parent wants. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to reflect that, are we prioritizing the things that's teaching that behavior, right, or not? So one of the things we also saw in the research is over half of the parents in our survey claimed they never played soccer, But then there was like 80+% claimed they knew the rules of soccer. And that's really tough to say. Like, if you have not put on the pace, how do you really, truly understand what it feels like to have a heavy touch, what it feels like to miss that volley, what it feels like to try to read a spin on a ball that's coming at you as a goalkeeper, right? Like, if you have not laced up the cleats, that's really hard to do. But parents haven't connected that. They think, I watch soccer, I know soccer. And that's tough. And so I think that's also a call for reflection too of, do you really know what it's like?
Right.
And the other piece, though, that half that has played soccer, are you honoring the development cycle? Like, are you honoring what a 9 or 10-year-old is really capable of doing? Are you expecting them to show up like a 15 or 16-year-old player that has had that maturity time and development time and has been through puberty and has all of that coordination that happens later in the game? Like, there's a lot of patience that parents, I think, need to reflect on and consider.
For sure. I guess, it's easy to pinpoint the bad ones, right? Yeah. Let's look at the good ones. Let's look at the ones that are actually the supportive ones. Like, what is the best behaviors that a parent would have?
I'm glad you said that, because it is very easy to focus on the bad, and there's a lot of good. So what does good behavior look like? I think it starts with asking your child, how do you want me to show up? If your child wants you cheering on the sideline, go be that person for him. If your child wants you to sit there quietly, then be that person for them. I think it's about making the car ride home not a post-game interview and interrogation session, right? Yeah. Figure out if your child wants to talk through that stuff. It's being an active listener. It's being that sort of emotional support and steadiness that they need in those times where they're being challenged. They're learning grit. They're learning to be that adult you want them to be. Mm-hmm. So, and there is a lot of that.
How do you initiate that conversation with your child?
So often I'm kind of just reading the vibe for my kid. I can, and I think every parent knows how to read their kid, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, look for the emotional cues, the body language, et cetera. If she's walking off the field laughing and joking, I'm joining her in that. If her head's kind of down, we're going to get in the car, we're going to turn on the music. Maybe we stop for ice cream. And then what I do personally, what I've learned works for my kid is, do you want to talk about it or not? Or do you have questions? Do you want to talk about it? And if she doesn't, we don't. I have 2 hard lines that they know. Good attitude. Like, we're not going to talk back to the refs. We're going to be a good teammate. Like, attitude and effort. And if you show up with attitude and effort, mom has no feedback. The reality is I'm seeing things. We're all seeing things, right? But that's not my opportunity. Sometimes too, I'll say, well, what did coach say? And to me, that is, your coach is the leader. I'm not the leader. I'm not making the calls. What did your coach say? Yep. And then based upon some of those questions, I get a feel. Is she going to talk about it or not? And if she doesn't, not my space.
How long has this sideline project been around, and what kind of I think it's a groundbreaking initiative. How has it evolved over the time that it's been in existence?
Oh, gosh. So Sky Eddy is the founder of the Sideline Project and Soccer Parenting Association. I'm going to say it's 8 to 10 years old. I should know that for sure.
Okay.
She started it on her own journey with her daughter, where she realized, and Sky was a professional player, played at elite levels. And then when her daughter was playing, she had this realization of, I actually don't know how to show up as a soccer parent. And through that journey, she learned a lot and then decided the soccer ecosystem needs this education, this voice. And so she has collaborated with experts on research, brought in a ton of expert voices to the conversation, and just developed content from there. So the products and the content are all rooted in what she's hearing from leaders in the soccer community. A really good example is the age group stuff. We publish content that is, hey, parents, here's how you should think about navigating the age group and how you should lead your child through it, right? In prior years, it's been, hey, parents, this is how you show up for your child during tryouts. And so as sort of the needs evolve, we try to address the content in that situation through the lens of guiding parents.
So you guys just published your 2025 annual report. Was there some realizations, some surprises that came out of that report? What were some of the highlights of that?
Yeah. So the realizations around sort of self-reflection, that's not new. We've seen that trend developing over time. We have seen a meaningful shift where parents are asking for coaches to have more interpersonal communication and connection skills. Parents aren't asking for the coaches to be experts in tactical knowledge. I don't know if that's a function of there's so much information out there. There's so many people providing that tactical. There's so many resources. That is not a need anymore. Or if it's a shift to like, you are an emotional leader and you're teaching my child life skills. I don't know that we know the root cause. We just know parents are now shifting to, I want my kid's coach to have really strong interpersonal skills.
Well, we ask parents, what do you want out of the club experience? It comes down to two things. Is my child enjoying themselves? Did they get better from last year? Yeah. So if they're not enjoying themselves, then that could be part of the communication and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, often overlooked. Like, it's very easy to say, but that joy is what gets you through college. If that's your dream, if you don't have the joy, you're not going to get through the grind of that process. It's such a grind, and you got to find joy in it. So instilling that joy early, that's so foundational.
So Sideline Project, as I'm aware, is initiated by a club. Are parents able to interact directly with the Sideline Project?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's the Sideline Project is a course, but then there's also the Soccer Parent Resource Center. And that's kind of a content library.
Okay.
So that's really good for parents who have a lot of questions or need some soccer education. There's like winning on game day about how do you feed your soccer player in the way they need it.
That's cool.
There's soccer 101. So maybe you've never played soccer and your child is into it and you just want to understand what the heck you're watching. There's 201 and 301 for, as your child grows and progresses in the sport, how does it change? And then there's blog posts and articles. There's Ask an Expert, where you can ask a question to a group of national coaches that are going to respond with their point of view. So it's meant to be kind of this lighthouse for parents that are looking for answers.
Yeah. Is the course mandatory for parents in the club?
So certain clubs, yes. Okay. So we run a program actually with Girls Academy League where all the Girls Academy teams compete against each other to try to get the best score. And then the winner gets I think a VOKM. We'll do programs like that. And there are a lot of clubs actually that require it of their parents as part of registration.
Yeah, we will be moving towards this. It kind of scared me in the beginning because I think I just have an unrealistic expectation of what it was. And it felt like I think I'd misunderstood some of the verbiage and I wanted to see how it played out. But the thing that concerned me was maybe turning the asylum over to the inmates is kind of it's just one specific sentence where I'm like, oh boy, we're going to collaborate with these monsters. But I think being more customer service oriented, bringing in a third party so it's not so adversarial. I think the program has, withstood the test of time, and it's something that we're going to engage with here shortly. So I think there's all kinds of good stuff to come with it.
One of the cool things too is we have some stuff specifically for coaches that guides coaches on how to manage parents too. Mm-hmm. And so how do you as a coach set your expectations at the start of the year? Like, where am I open door and when are my closed doors?
Yeah, boundaries are important. They do that with clients in real estate. Who's calling me at 10:30 at night, or I've had clients call me at 2 a.m, expecting me to answer my phone. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
You'd be shocked at how much too, the boundaries and clear expectations around what you're willing to communicate on and how and when.
Yeah.
How much that softens the case.
Yeah, if you tell them up front, usually the only time you're going to hear from somebody is an emergency situation then. So they understand, you got a life. Yeah. You got kids. You got your own thing going on.
Yeah. We've seen coaches too that run these pregame huddles with the parents where while the kids are warming up, they'll come over and they'll talk to the parents and say, hey, in practice this week, we worked on this technique and I'm going to ask the kids to really focus on that in this game. And so as you're on the sideline, know that I'm asking them for that behavior, please don't discourage it.
That's smart.
And it's in particular with the really young ones where you're trying to instill certain behaviors and,
Yeah, wins and losses don't matter at that age at all, so yeah, that makes sense.
So the landscape of competitive soccer is drastically changing platforms, but probably the largest interruption that all the clubs are dealing with this year is resetting the age cutoff from January to August 1st. Girls Academy, ECNL, USYS, MLS Next, Academy Division, all those are going from January to August 1st. Now, you mentioned it before. This is this changes back the change from September to January that was made in 2017 I have a lot of opinions about that, but we won't be getting into it. But they basically threw that change as their parting gift, and then they cleaned house with the U.S. soccer leadership. So how are we preparing the clubs and the families and, through both of your roles, what do you think are the best practices for this change?
Yeah. So one thing I think is important to know that maybe not every person that's involved in sort of the administrative business side of soccer sees. This was moving back to a system that was proven. And U.S. soccer is really listening to people, and under their new leadership, I think they're very thoughtful about change and strategically where they go and how they serve families. And so I think this feels like a major change and a big move.
That's a lot different than 2017.
Yes. And that change that was made then, they're unwinding it for the families. And so it may not feel like that to a lot of families, but the reality is that's what they're doing. And when you look at what does it mean for kids, yes, it's going to be change for a lot of kids, but they're getting, ideally, in theory, into their school age. And they're playing on teams with their classmates. They're in community with their classmates. They are, they're building their network and their connections in a way that's more age appropriate.
And what was the reason for the change in the first place?
Well, it was, I don't know if there's an appropriate way to say it. So that's maybe my job to step in and say it inappropriately. It was a directive. This time it's consultative. So it's more, so the only nice way to say it is our national team sucked, got embarrassed, and this was the leadership's parting gift to the program was, well, it's because you're on this system rather than...
So the international system is the original reason why they changed it, and then...
The theory was it makes their recruitment process easier.
Oh. But it's kind of half-hearted because not all of the international teams, including England, follow the January birth date. So it was kind of the leadership, and I think a lot of problems are coming undone right now because, are you going to shout directives or are you going to run a consultative program and are you going to innovate your program? And I think innovation's winning out versus these antiquated directives. And so for me as a club leader, this is an easier change because we believe in this change. It puts classmates back together. Think of a 6-year-old Monte going to a park with his best friend, and they tell you, well, if you're on soccer, you guys got to split up and you got to go to different teams, or you could play t-ball together. What are you going to... Right out of the gate, we lose so many players. At the entry level, we were splitting up classmates. So I think this will be a short-term pain, but I think we're excited to rip the Band-Aid off and get on with something.
When does that go into effect?
So it'll be in the fall. We're at East Central.
Yep.
So, and we've done some things to try to address the trap players issue of 8th grade to limit that the impact of that as much as possible and keep kids playing.
A trapped 8th grader is a player that loses half their team because they all turn freshmen, and there's maybe 6 kids left that don't have enough for a team. So we didn't have trap players, or we didn't have a lot of trap players before when we had the September cutoff. So
yeah. And with the September cutoff, it's very, very few, I think, no trap.
And so now it'll go to August. Well, I mean, in 2017, it was September. Now it's coming back to August, which aligns with most of the school districts.
Yeah, that makes sense. So those kids, if they are trapped, do they play up then?
Well, this is the question, I think some of the leagues right now have made exceptions. They've said, well, we'll take 3 trap players on each roster. Other leagues, I don't think they know how to deal with it yet, but I think there is a lot of conversation when last time it was like, no, you just
Yeah, this is only for a 1 year
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So Central agreed to allow up to 3 track players per team at U14. And so, the thing for kids is as you grow in a sport and as you start to do additional things like additional trainings or ODP or whatever those supplemental things may be, you are going to play with other players. And that's an incredible opportunity to build your network and your connections in the sport.
Plus, also get better.
Yeah. And you're also learning a skill, right? You learn that skill of walking into a new place as an adult, and trying to figure out how to make connections and create community.
Yeah.
And so, yes, kids are going to be switching teams. Cool. Let's learn that life skill on how to do that properly. The other thing, too, a little side benefit I don't hear a ton of conversation about is the benefit for parents. Now, all of a sudden, these other kids in my kids' school, we're all on the same team. We can carpool. We could ride together, like kind of lessen some of the burden on parents.
For sure.
So just completely going off topic here. How do we get more female leaders in sport and soccer? And
Ooh, I didn't know you were going to go there.
I didn't. Sorry. I think it's a good opportunity because you're obviously a leader, and it's just we've tried and we continue to try, and we've taken an approach where we're going to invest, we're going to innovate, and then we're also going to grow and build. And we started an onboarding program, but mostly we've hired female coaches and then they quit. How do we make that environment appealing, and what can we do so that we put these leaders in front of our daughters so that they know that this opportunity exists for them?
Yeah. This is interesting to me. I'm going to reflect a little bit on my experience. So I grew up sort of pre the 99ers. So I was in high school and they were kind of making their way, which meant my entire youth soccer experience was on boys teams. Okay. And I think a lot of women my age that are starting to step into leadership roles had very similar experiences in sports. And so, candidly, I know how to navigate a room full of men. That there's a consciousness for me of what that looks like and how that's going to be different than maybe a corporate environment or a room full of women. And so I think there is a level of soft skills training for that can happen for how do you walk into those spaces with confidence. At the same time, I think the men in the room also have to be self-aware of how they're showing up and the certain things that maybe push the women to the side or force them to be quiet. So there is also research that shows when there's 30% of a certain population in a room, they feel like they can speak up. And so if your leadership staff isn't 30% women, then those women on the leadership staff are probably not going to be willing to speak up. So whatever that tipping point happens around that point for some reason, I don't know the data and the story behind it, but I think it's aspirational for every team to have that 30%. And then you get a little bit of collaboration. You start to get that female perspective.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Those women that have left, find out why.
Yeah. Oh, that's
create a really safe environment where like that pulls that honesty out. Tell me why. I really want to know in the spirit of if there were mistakes made, how can we fix them? And ask why those are late. And maybe you get very legitimate answers that you have no control over. But if you really dive in and create that environment where they're going to tell you, you'll hear the truth.
Yeah. Good.
I like that
30% thing too.
I think that's for anybody, really. Why did you leave? Why didn't you get that job? Why didn't you make the team? Could be not just like if a female coach quits, but it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Go find out how you can get better.
That's great.
Yeah.
Or why you don't mix with that person, whatever, It's good advice all the way around.
What about the local scene and the age group change? Going back to that do you feel like a lot of clubs are ready? Do you feel like what can we do in the community to, is there anything you'd like to say to a parent who's experiencing that fear of the unknown? That's what.
Yeah, I think for parents, it's be thoughtful about how you lead your child here, right? Focus on what's good about it. Focus on new friends, new opportunities if they are switching teams. If they're technically staying on the same team, and you're like, oh, I'm good, I don't have anything to worry about. No, that's not true. Your responsibility is to welcome those new kids in, and your responsibility is to help build a team. I think, going back to our research, one of the things we learned is there's not a ton of community and connections. I think we have this effect of parents like competing against each other and trying to have their 9 or 10-year-old be the best 9 or 10-year-old on the team. And we're kind of going to subtly, not outwardly, but subtly battle each other. I would love for that narrative to shift to creating connection and like between tournament games. Be the parent that makes the reservation where the entire team can go eat together and you make friends. Be the parent that hosts the end of season party. And maybe if that's not you, find a way to somehow help create connection, because that is a difference maker for clubs. That is a difference maker for creating a healthy culture within a club.
So this season, we're kind of ramping up to tryouts now. And being the operations manager of the East Central District, do you become a referee between clubs this time of year, or do you not feel that type of strain from?
I don't feel that.
Okay.
And I think I think that's between clubs often.
Yeah.
If I were to think about what's the role of East Central, to me, it's every kid has a space to play.
Yeah.
And so if your child is trying out for a club and may not make the team they want to make, or you feel like your child fits better at a different club, I think East Central's role is to help navigate that.
Yeah.
And every club has a personality. And it doesn't take long to clock a club's personality. And if you can help match right kid to right club, it may not exactly be where your kids' friends are, but if it's the right fit for the club, then I think East Central can play a role in that, because our mindset is healthy soccer district. Healthy soccer district means every kid that wants to play has a space to play.
On a nationwide scene, the platforms are kind of changing, and this isn't a question as much as it is maybe explaining it to. I'm just thinking of somebody who's listening to this right now.
Oh, the apple dip soup.
Yeah, Michigan and Wisconsin are the last frontier of United States youth soccer, and Girls Academy, MLS Next, and ECNL kind of crept in from the coasts, and we kind of kept our head in the sand, and everybody followed the same guidelines for the last 20 to 25 years. Now it is clearly eroded, and the gloves are off, and what that's led to is multi earlier tryouts, ID camps, all these sorts of things. So parents that have questions about that kind of stuff, is the difference between Milwaukee and Green Bay soccer is we are still kind of in the USYS mentality. The Milwaukee clubs are very aggressive, and they've been having tryouts as early as December. Generally, our tryouts are within the 3-week window of June. So those clubs are trying to capture each other's players, and it's very cutthroat, and it creeps up to here a little bit. And I know some people have some questions. We are hosting an ID camp this weekend, which probably by the time this is released, it'll be outdated. But the purpose for our ID camp this year is just to provide visibility of the age groups and to see the kids that you're potentially playing with. But we opted not to extend offers to players for that event, just because we don't necessarily know what platform we're going to be playing with the girls, and we want everybody in the club to know what we're offering and them to come in on the same footing. So behind the scenes, there's this has been the most volatile offseason I've ever been a part of, and there's a lot of jockeying and politics that people don't know about. But for us, in USYS, you're allowed to make early offers and host ID events if you're operating the top tier, which is USYS, and not many people have teams in that, and East Central couple do. So those clubs it's their right to make early offers. I think it's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
If you in Milwaukee, I've seen it done two ways. I've seen people have early tryouts, offer all their players the opportunity to come back. That seems to work, but maybe you get a kid back that you didn't want. But I've seen another club where they've only offered their locks early offers, and the rest of their team walks. So for us to watch that type of stuff, it's I think it's we don't want any nebulism on what we're offering when we make an offer. We want it to be clear what platform you're going to. At the same time, we want to provide visibility that, you're not playing with the same team, but Wisconsin United is a club that offers quality at every age group. So how do you so come and play and just have full visibility. Your new teams, we remove that fear of the unknown, and that's really our objective behind our ID event. In a normal year, we would use it to maybe entice some people to experience our training, but for this year, we think it's really important to remove the fear of the unknown. So I think people are really confused about what is an ID event and what is a tryout.
Yeah, and to your point, so that happens on the national scene on a consistent basis, and we in this area we have been very isolated from that. I think in a very good and healthy way, but we can't hold back the tide anymore, right? So
yeah,
and when you start to compete at a national level, you have to have the structures and the process to get you what's needed to compete at that level, quite frankly, right? And sometimes that means extending your reach a little bit bigger, a little bit further out. So those ID events are perfect for that. From a kind of a parenting and child side of it, I think it's, again, reflection. What does your child want? Not what do you, the parent, think is the best path for your child. What does your child want out of the sport? And match that with capability. And I think that should drive how you show up and what you strive for and what is your family capable of. Because if your child is like, I don't know, I like to pick daisies. You know, I need the list next, right? Like there's a program for that. Or if your child is very driven and focused on soccer, there's a program for that. Consider whether your child is a multi-sport athlete and really gets a ton of joy out of that multi-sport. Maybe that helps drive how you land. The cool thing is there's a space and an opportunity for everyone, and that talent can match to the level in our region. And that's a cool evolution. That talent can play at the level where they belong.
I get this question, if my kid's not playing MLS next by the time they're 16, is their life totally over?
Oh my gosh.
And it's kind of like it gets to the real problem of like, well, what are you playing for joy or status?
Yeah.
And who's leading the conversation?
Yeah.
Like you said, let the child lead it. They'll tell you if you listen, but if you don't listen and they will tell you what they think you want to hear. And then
get burnout and quit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to lead to is burnout is like, nobody says, hey mom, I'm burning out. They just say, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And so be sensitive to that, because once you reach that target, there's no going back, right? So long drives to practice, missing birthday parties for games in Illinois, or these sorts of things. You can take your time and let your child mature, especially in this 11 to 14 space.
Right. There's no greater equalizer in sports than puberty, honestly. Like, there's no greater equalizer. And you see these 8, 9, 10-year-olds like, oh, MLS next, or like, I'm on the pathway, or I'm pre-whatever. And it's like, okay, call me when you've been through puberty.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Like, that to me, anytime part of that, joy, happiness, fulfillment, friends, like that. And also all the wonderful life lessons that come with it. But like, at a young age, it's, you said it, it's like the status is prioritized over the process.
Yeah. When you're talking about burnout for kids, and you said, they just stop and they end. Melissa, for you having kids, how can parents identify burnout in their kid before it gets to that point of crap, we're done?
I told this line. It was a lesson for me, actually. I learned for my daughter. She came home and we were kind of in the thick of wrestling season, and that's a hard season of the body. And we were also playing indoor at the same time, and like it, not a single night at home. And she came home from practice one day, and I could just tell she was kind of on the verge of tears. And what she said to me was, "I haven't had any time to crochet," and I was like, "That's the thing." But for her, what she was telling me without like realizing it was, there's a lot of things I love to do that I just don't have the time for.
Right.
And so it became an intentional choice. And, this next season, we're going to dial things back. We're going to do it differently. And I was very upfront with her. Like, I made this mistake. Like, I should have seen it. We had a conversation about it. You're going to fulfill your commitment. We're not quitting right now because that's what we do, but we're going to take this lesson into next season. We're going to approach it differently. And so I think for every kid, it's different.
Yeah.
And you know, you kids,
yeah.
Like just listen for what they don't say. Look at the energy when they come out of practice, when they wake up in the morning. Are you battling to get them onto the field? Like if you are, a little bit of reflection. Oh, am I pushing too hard?
Yeah.
We see a lot of kids overtrained and under-recovered.
Yeah.
And that's not where you want your child to be.
Put that down for a new podcast episode.
There you go.
It's a big one.
That is.
Thank you for coming in.
Love it. Hey, before you leave,
yeah,
I asked him before his favorite childhood athletic memory, and he said he got kicked in the nose and broke his nose in 6 places.
That's your favorite?
That's his most memorable. And then he said the broken thing. So same question to you.
Do you have a favorite where I can buy some time?
I coached the first Midwest Conference final because our head coach for St. Norbert College in a long time because our head coach got a red card in the semifinal. So I like to give him shit that I was in the final of the conference tournament before you will. He doesn't like that much, but then we got a red card on the field. We got a red card on the bench, and then we were down a man against Carroll, who had gone infinitely a number of times, and we had a goalkeeper who was just what do you want to call him? He was a dog, and he took us to the 7-shooter, Scott Fall, and he won that game, and we knocked Carroll out, and they outshot us like 100,000 to 1, and it was a pretty awesome experience. And then we got smoked the next day, which was we don't need to talk about.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I'm a therapist right now, getting all the bad memories out, cleaning his mind out. All right, what do you got?
So in college, the program I played for was a relatively new program. I was I think I was the first recruiting class or second early on. So building a program's not easy in college. And so our team, the first 2 years, it was brutal. And there was Indiana Wesleyan. Man, they would wreck us. They were a much more mature program. And I remember finally my senior year, we were able to beat them. 1-0. Just a really wonky, don't tell anybody this. I was trying to cross the ball and I just mishit it and it sort of just curved into the goal.
You can't tell anybody. Yeah.
I was way too proud to be taking a shot, and it just was like, it was just a wonky ball. So we won 1-0, and that like feeling of like climbing that hill and beating that team that we thought was impossible to beat a few years prior, like the joy our team felt that day was so much fun.
I love it.
So.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, very good. Well, thanks to Melissa for coming on. This was so good. I wish I would have did this podcast when I was doing recruiting. That was really valuable.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, guys. Well, that was it. That was episode 2 of the Wisconsin United Football Club pod. That's a lot to say. Podcast. So thanks again for coming in, and thanks for having me as your host, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa.